Finn Allen's innings was out of this world. 33 ball 100. Out of those 33 balls, 18 balls, he scores 88 or 84 runs. And the remaining balls, it's like, what were you doing there? He could have scored a 25 ball 100 for all you know. It was complete brute force. Welcome back to the InBetweenOvers Podcast. We're your host for today's play. I'm Taran.
And I'm Ishaan.
Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel.
So the first semifinal concluded in Eden Gardens against South Africa and New Zealand. Cracker of the game. We are recording after the second semifinal because obviously we wanted to see who the finals were, and it was obviously an incredible game. A lot to talk about. But first of all, we have our first semifinalist, New Zealand. What are your thoughts on that, Taran?
The first question that comes to mind for me is, what the hell was that? Finn Allen's innings was out of this world. 33 ball 100. Out of those 33 balls, 18 balls, he scores 88 or 84 runs. And the remaining balls, it's like, what were you doing there? He could have scored a 25 ball 100 for all you know. It was complete brute force. We had some ram shots in there, but he reminds me of a right-handed Matthew Hayden.
Wow, that's a compliment. And I think that's a very, very apt compliment because 8 sixes, 10 fours, that's sometimes the total a team gets in T20 cricket, let alone a single player. Dealing in boundaries. And again, we talked about this off the podcast. He's joining KKR. This is going to be his home ground. But obviously, what an incredible innings. I think one definitely he'll remember forever that really did secure New Zealand's position in the T20 World Cup Final. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they've ever won the World Cup Final before, the T20 World Cup.
No, absolutely not. New Zealand have been the darlings of most World Cup tournaments, where they either reach the semis or the finals and then they fall short, or they play, what do they call it, bridesmaid to whoever ends up being the bride.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. So who knows? Maybe this is another year where it could be the difference maker for them. Maybe they have the right players this time. They definitely have a different crop of players than previous occasions, like case in point, Finn Allen. They had Martin Guptill, but Finn Allen seems a lot more dangerous than Martin Guptill. Obviously, he doesn't have the body of work that Martin Guptill has yet. Martin Guptill has scored runs in one days. He scored runs in T20s. But if you're talking just T20, Finn Allen's performances so far, and this performance alone, puts him up there in as one of the best openers for New Zealand in quite some time.
No, and I think, definitely looking at this game, obviously they were chasing, so he had to secure it. But I think as he was batting, I think when he started really accelerating, as you mentioned, he had a very fast start. Don't get me wrong. But when he really started going to 5th, 6th gear was when it just seemed like any score on the board could have gotten chased. And I think definitely now this is, one definitely a must-watch player going forward in T20 circuit.
Yeah, so looking at New Zealand's chase, because we have to start there, it was such a phenomenal, dominant performance by them. Yeah. I don't think anyone saw this coming, especially given the fact how well South Africa played throughout the tournament. They look like the form team. They look like the team to beat. They weren't beaten till this game. And they ended up scoring only 172. We'll unpack their batting in a bit, but when you look at New Zealand chasing this and chasing it in 12.5 overs at a run rate of 13.48 and just the loss of 1 wicket, it's just mind-boggling. And was it just the pitch? Was it just the do? Or was it just amazing batting, or is all of the above?
I think it's all of the above. Obviously, some factoring a little bit more than the others, but you still have to execute as much due it is, as much as the pitches, whatever. These are world-class bowlers. You have robotics teaming in. You have Maharaj bowling at you. These are bowlers who they will not, resign to the conditions. They will try to get your wicket because obviously they're international players. They have stakes in this game as well. They're trying to win a World Cup. So all these things considered, I think it was, all of the factors you mentioned before, but he still had to put in the work and he still had to execute. And we saw there today, which is why you don't see these innings as often as you should because they're very hard to execute.
Another number we have to throw out there, Finn Allen's strike rate is 303. Like, I don't know what more to say about this innings. It's just phenomenal. And against, like you said, a bowling attack comprising of Marco Jansen, Kagiso Rabada, Lungi Ngidi, Keshav Maharaj, and Corbin Bosch. No one that's an easy for a bowler to just hit around. Like, these are world class bowlers in their own right, and he made it look so easy.
Yeah, IPL caliber bowlers, familiar with the conditions. Again, you can have as much praise for him as much as you could, but it was just one of those innings where you may have to look back at the year and really, look at it like this could be the innings of the year because it was so, one sided, so destructive, so destructive. I believe at the end of the game, the South African coach in the press conference, he said, it wasn't a choke, it was a walloping. In the sense that he said that South Africa had never had a sniff, especially the way the finale was batting. So I think that just says how good the performance was.
I have another stat to share how good of an innings this was. In the previous semifinal against, in the previous game that India and West Indies played at Kolkata, the same ground, Shea Hope, you may remember, faced 33 balls and scored 32 runs. Finn Allen scored 100 of 33 balls. Like, I still can't believe it. I still
There you
can't
have
believe
it.
it.
That's the stat. That's the stat of the day.
Yeah, stat of the day and fantastic innings, but it wouldn't have been the innings it would have been without his partner in crime, Tim Seifert. Almost
Yes.
an innings that just goes under the radar. Equally destructive, equally powerful in his own right. Different statures. Seifert more of a stocky build than Finn, who's more like a giant, built like a giant, I should say. Tim Seifert reminds me a lot of Baz McCullum himself from back in
Yes.
the day. I know he's changed his batting stance lately. There's been some memes and images doing the rounds on social media with him looking like Faf du Plessis
The
with his
knees.
batting stance. Yeah, with his batting stance. But there are also similarities with Baz McCullum in the way he shapes up to the boulders. So after his trigger movement, as he gets into his batting stance, his actual stance to stroke the ball, he looks a lot like Baz McCullum.
Well, those are great comparables, especially, at that level. But no, destructive. And yeah, again, I think as they had gone through the power play without losing a wicket, it did seem like they would have this game in the bag. The way they were batting, nothing seemed like, they're giving no sniffs really to South Africa. So no, I definitely felt like after the power play, you kind of knew the game was one sided.
Yeah, so we'll come back to recap the game. We'll talk about South Africa's batting performance. So they were asked to bat. It felt like one of those matches where you win the toss, you have an edge just because of the amount of dew that factored in. And you saw that in the way New Zealand batted because of how easy the balls seemed to come onto the bat. And then when you watch South Africa's innings, it was almost the opposite, where it wasn't as easy for them to stroke the ball. There was a little bit of stop-start nature in it. And it started to get easier as their innings went on. In the early part of the innings, as they started the innings, they got off to a slow start. And it was New Zealand's Mr. Subcontinent himself is what he calls himself, I believe. Cole McConkey, who is a subcontinental specialist in the New Zealand team, comes in for a World Cup knockout game, bowls one over, takes 2 wickets and 2 balls, almost gets a hat trick if he had a slip in place,
Yeah.
and then just chills out in the field the rest of the game.
Hey, he did his part. But no, that's what it was. And I think you raised a good point about the conditions. It did seem like it was a little slow. It was a stop and start, go start in the beginning. Losing key wickets as well was not, ideal, especially in a knockout game in the front. Quinton de Kock, you know how destructive he is. But as you mentioned, an interesting point as well. You saw as the batting went on, Marco Jansen was able to strike the ball very easily. And I think a part of that was probably when the dew was starting to settle in.
Yeah, I think the first half of South Africa's innings is where the damage needed to be done by New Zealand, and
Yeah.
that is where they did the damage. The first half, 10 overs, 10.2 overs, South Africa were already 5 down. Five of
Yep.
their key batters already back in the hut. And so you're relying on your lower order batters to get you some sort of a target. And this is when the dew started to creep in, and we saw Tristan Stubbs and Marco Jansen play a sort of rescue act. Once again, New Zealand were able to pull things back right at the end when it looked like Tristan Stubbs was getting into the groove and maybe take the score closer to that 175, 180 plus mark. They were able to get him out, and then kind of South Africa kind of limped their way to 160, 69. They only scored 18 runs in those last 2 overs. I think they were
Yep.
probably overall, it felt like they were 70 runs short, given how easily New Zealand chased. If you're talking, I realistically probably 30 runs short. I felt a target of 190 to 200 would have definitely made a a difference in terms of the psyche of the New Zealand team as they get into bat versus chasing 170. And you heard that at the break too, where Santner at some point said that he said that at the break they felt very happy with 170, 170.
Yeah, and I agree with that. There was a little rescue act at the end there, but they would have, I think, felt comfortable that they had runs on the board, but I don't think they would have been confident in those runs. Because to your point, they'd stumbled in the beginning and they had like some momentum at the end, a little too short, especially in a place like Eden Gardens when you're expecting to do. You do need to really be above par. You can't even be at par in my eyes in the first innings. So I think, yeah, obviously to be at par, they're probably 20, 30 short, but ideally, they would have wanted to be obviously above par because of the fact that it gets a little easier in the second half. So a little unfortunate about the toss situation, but it's part of the game. It's part of the conditions. You got to fight for it. And hey, if you want to go in the final, you have to perform well. So it is what it is for South Africa there.
Yeah, so where did it go wrong? Where did it go wrong for South Africa? They looked like the team to beat, as we said, in this tournament. They were the ones that beat India, that stopped that juggernaut. And it looked like they were hitting their straps. It looked like they didn't have many weaknesses in their batting. Their bowling looked like they had all bases covered there with different types of fast bowling, slower ball specialists in there. You had a reliable spinner in Keshav Maharaj. You had some good all rounders in Marco Jansen, Corbin Bosch. Where did it go wrong?
I think if you looked at obviously the bowling and the batting separately, one, I think you're right. They're pretty strong both in both departments. But I think both, at least from a batting perspective, the top batters, I think both did not perform well this game at all. For the bowling, maybe if you can add like in the dew as a factor, but the top five batting, you got to do better than that in a knockout match semifinal. I know the pitch wasn't ideal or you didn't get help from dew, but your top 4 or 5 batters, they can look to have a mini collapse in a semifinal.
Yeah, I also think there was probably some tactical errors with the ball. When you saw Finn Allen and Tim Seifert get off to that start, I felt they should have gambled with Maharaj in one of the power play overs, if not maybe right after the power play. But they kind of held him back, and I don't know why that was the case. I would have probably tried spin against Finn Allen and changed it up because forget Finale, even Tim Seifert, both of them look so comfortable against the pace bowling with the do there. So maybe there was a case of bowling Maharaj. Now the argument to that could be, well, there's a lot of do. It would have been hard for him to grip it. Could have been worse. But
Mhm.
I guess we both will never know. But it just felt like something different needed to be done. That's one. And then the second thing from a tactical standpoint is Lungi Ngidi has been their best bowler, yet he comes in first change. And I don't think he bowled till the fourth over. So even that was a little strange, given how well he's bowled this entire tournament. I would have probably opened the bowling. Well, Marco Jansen's always opened the bowling, but I would have given Giri the other over, the second over of the game.
Yeah, that was surprising to me as well. I think, sometimes it comes to the fact that, if you're utilizing him as first change or whatnot, you keep it as it is. But, you definitely got to make those adjustments in the later half of a tournament when things are, changing or working in your favor. So, no, I definitely agree with that. But yeah, it definitely seemed like, South Africa unfortunately just didn't put themselves in the right position just to win this game.
Yeah, it wasn't a choke job, that's for sure. It was a clear annihilation, as you mentioned, what the coach said of South Africa. Shukri Conrad said it was a walloping. It definitely wasn't a choke. The game wasn't even close for it to give South Africa a chance to even choke. Like it was just a complete battering with the bat by New Zealand, and suddenly out of nowhere, they're looking like the team that could come out with the cup from almost having half their bags and their bodies in an airplane back to New Zealand.
Yeah, hey, that's T20 cricket for you, right? Things can flip on a dime, but hey, you got to be ready for your opportunity. It definitely seemed like New Zealand when they were in the run, when they were in the the chase, they took advantage of it. South Africa were the favorites. India was afraid of South Africa, but at the last game, South Africa did not even seem dominant at all. And I think that's the nature of T20 cricket. The margin between victory and loss is just so thin that any team can really figure out a way to win.
All right. So the finals on Sunday, as we mentioned, we recorded this after the second semifinal, so we know who the finalists are. It's going to be India versus New Zealand. It's going to be a humdinger of a match. It is going to be played at Ahmedabad. Seems to be the place to play finals in India. I just hope that this one's a little different than that one in 2023 November. We all know what I'm talking about. But at least we don't have to play a team that's wearing some yellow on them.
Although they're neighbors.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. As the Great Cricketer podcast say, New Zealand is essentially part of Australia if Australia is not in the tournaments. So are we playing Australia? Well, we'll find out on Sunday. It's going to be a great game, and we will bring it to you after the game's done. Let's hope for a competitive game. And until then, that stumps.